Hey guys, this is Austin. You should not buy the iPhone 11 Pro. Let me explain. So some of you might know I spent the last year using the iPhone XR. Now there are a bunch of reasons for that, but the main one has absolutely been battery life. However, this year things have changed in a pretty major way. So gone is the iPhone XR, XS, and XS Max, and now we have three new models: the iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Pro, and the iPhone 11 Pro Max. Because I guess they took some notes out of Samsung's naming scheme. At their core, these new iPhones are very similar to last generation. So you can think of the 11 very much as the follow-up to the XR. I definitely appreciate the new colors, but beyond the new dual camera setup, which I will talk a little bit more about later, the rest of the design is very similar. So you still get basically the same display, so no OLED, it's not higher resolution. That's fine for me, but there's some other things that actually make the iPhone 11 a pretty compelling upgrade. Of course, this does have the new Apple A13 Bionic chip. Now it doesn't seem like it's a major upgrade this year, and in fact the A12 is already incredibly fast, but you are getting somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20% better CPU performance and significantly better graphics performance. As always, they show some really high-end games on stage, which are great, but the main thing here really is the camera upgrade. Something else that hasn't changed is the notch. So all the iPhone 11 models have pretty much the exact same massive notch as the last generation. Now, I mean, yeah, I'm not really a big fan, especially given that you can get some very cheap phones with some very small notches. However, at least they've seen a couple of upgrades this year, including better Face ID, as well as supposedly a much better front-facing camera with a wider angle lens. But the real star of the show here are the cameras on the back of the device. The iPhone XR, alongside, I guess, the Pixel 3, was one of the very last phones that only had a single rear-facing camera. However, the iPhone 11 bumps that up to 2. So you have a improved sensor on the standard shooter, which was nice, but the main thing here really is the new wide-angle camera. Now with a 13mm wide-angle focal length, essentially you're getting double the amount of stuff in frame, footage in frame, things in frame.
There are way better ways to say that.
I ran out of words. For more visual representation, Ken, can you please zoom all the way in on the camera? This is what the standard angle looks like, and then if you zoom out, this is what the wide angle will look like. See? Visual representations. Gotta teach the kids. Real talk though, I'm a huge fan of having a wide-angle camera on a phone. I think it makes so much sense. And in fact, one of the main downsides with the XR compared to the XS was that it didn't have that telephoto camera. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not all that useful, at least in the past. I'll talk a little bit about some of the upgrades on that in a second. But the main thing here is that you're going to be getting a lot of major improvements on the camera side, because not only do you have the improved standard camera and the wide angle, but you can seamlessly move between them. And one of my favorite things they showed at the keynote was you actually can, while you're taking a photo in standard, you actually can see on the sides of the camera app what will be in the wide, so it's very easy to switch back and forth. They've also improved the portrait mode, especially considering that you can now use it on the ultra-wide camera. But the thing I'm really excited to see is night mode. Now the iPhone, for a while, was really good on the camera front, but in the last couple years feels like it has been passed by a lot of devices such as the Pixel, and especially the Pixel really pioneered the idea of doing a dedicated night mode. However, that is now a feature in the new iPhone 11, the Pro, the Max, all that kind of stuff, and essentially it works in a very similar way. So of course Apple's using all their wonderful buzzwords and why it's so powerful and magical and everything, but the idea here is that you should see significantly better low-light performance on the iPhone 11. And I mean, great, because it needed it. The video also looks really impressive. So the iPhone, as far as I'm concerned, already has the best video on any smartphone out right now. And now you'll see better dynamic range, you'll also see better stabilization, and you can seamlessly move between your wide as well as your standard cameras. All really good stuff, especially considering that we'll go all the way up to 4K 60. Side note, the front-facing camera also now gets these same improvements. So you can shoot in 4K, you can also shoot slow motion, known as a slow fee. Oh, I said it. Well, yeah, I mean, so yeah, slow fee. There are some other nice benefits, including you do now have Wi-Fi 6 on board, as well as one of the nice things is the water resistance is a little bit better. So I believe it is now 2 meters for 30 minutes, but I mean, should make a huge difference. Essentially, my favorite part of the iPhone 11, sorry, gather around here, get a little close, is it is now cheaper. Yes, my friends, the new iPhone is cheaper than last year. So whereas the iPhone XR started at $749, the new iPhone 11 is $699. And honestly, that's a really good deal, especially when you compare it to the iPhone 11 Pro. The iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max are very much follow-ups to the iPhone XS as well as the XS Max. They're basically the same size, and from the front, they're nearly identical. Now, when you flip them around to the back, there are some slight changes, including the triple camera. Now, yes, it is wonderful to have triple cameras, but man, I can't help but think it's ugly. Like, especially when they showed that shot of the iPhone 11 in the case. Like, the 11 by itself with 2 cameras looks fine, but the weird triple camera thing, like, Johnny Ive, man, he's gone for 5 minutes and they've already done this. To be fair, I'm sure everyone will get used to it in like 3 months, but I just can't unsee it. Just looks like the Mickey Mouse ears. I think the iPhone 11 straight up is a better looking phone. Now there are some new advantages as far as the colors to the Pro. So there's this cool, like, what do they call it, midnight green?
Midnight green.
There's midnight green, space gray, silver, and gold. The midnight green does look cool, I will say, but the camera is not particularly impressive looking. Now, there are some other advantages here. So the display is better. You've got up to 1200 nits of brightness. They've now named it the XDR display to sell more Mac Pros or something. It's the Super Retina XDR. Because of course it is. But importantly, it is also now more energy efficient. According to Apple, it is 15% better, and that actually should make a big difference for battery life, because with the previous generation of iPhones, those OLED displays used a lot of power even at idle, so thankfully it looks like they've done at least something to kind of fix that. Battery life actually is one of the bigger advantages going up to these new models. So while the 10R versus 11 isn't huge, it's only an extra hour of battery life on the 11. However, the 10R already had phenomenal battery life, so I'm certainly not complaining there. However, the Pro models are leagues better. So when you look at the 10S versus the Pro, you're getting 4 hours more battery life. Now, that sounds super impressive. However, the battery life was terrible on the 10S, so that's probably getting it closer to like the 10R 11 range. And when you go from the iPhone 10s Max to the iPhone 11 Pro Max, you're getting 5 hours more battery life. It's gonna take me so long to get that name right. iPhone 11 Pro Max. Real talk though, battery life is great. Huge fan of battery life. And honestly, the iPhone 10R, I've continued to use it for a year purely because it is by far the best battery on any iPhone. So the fact that the 11 is getting an upgrade, as well as the Pros seem to be at least on that same plane, is a huge, huge win. But really, what is separating the iPhone 11 Pro from the standard 11 is that third camera. So in addition to the ultra-wide camera and the standard wide angle, you do have the telephoto. Now it is only a 2x telephoto as opposed to 3x or more on a lot of other devices right now, but it's a nice spread. Essentially it gives you a 13mm equivalent, 26 and 52. And all of the stuff with being able to use 2 cameras in video and photos on the 11 comes across with all 3 cameras on the Pro. I've actually not been a huge fan of the telephoto on previous iPhones, mostly because it just really wasn't very good. It had a fairly low f2.8 aperture, and generally speaking, especially in lower light, it looks trash compared to the main camera. However, this year it is a much wider f2 aperture, which should get it much, much closer to that wide angle camera. And on top of that, there's also a new deep fusion feature, which essentially will take 4 stills before you hit the shutter button, 1 long exposure when you hit it, and then 4 after, and merge them all in less than a second to what should be a very high quality image. However, this is something we'll have to test later because it is coming in a software update this fall, so it won't be ready for launch. But generally speaking, the camera does look to be a major upgrade this year. But that's pretty much it as far as upgrades, which brings me to the main point of this video. The iPhone 11 is simply a better choice this year, I think. So let's go over what you don't get this year. So there's no USB-C, all the phones use Lightning. There's no high refresh rate display, which would be really nice, especially compared to things like the OnePlus or the ROG phone. There's no Apple Pencil support, and surprisingly, there's also no bilateral wireless charging. Very similar to what you can get on Samsung devices where you can charge something like an AirPod or even like another phone using the rear charger. That is not here on the iPhone 11, even though it was very much rumored to be coming to this generation of iPhones. There's also no 5G, which really isn't a huge surprise. However, a lot of other flagships are integrating 5G, so you'll have to wait another year for that. And on top of all of this, they've actually removed 3D touch from all of the iPhones this year. Now the 10R did lose it last year, so it's been replaced with haptic touch, which just means you tap and hold to pull up your cursor or whatever. It's fine, it works just fine, but it's not really a huge upgrade. In fact, I would say it's a downgrade compared to last year. But that's the thing, this year's upgrades aren't really all that exciting. Considering that the iPhone 11 is a full $300 cheaper than the Pro, what you're losing really isn't all that significant. And yes, you get the 2 cameras instead of 3 cameras, which I don't even consider to be a huge downgrade considering it looks so much less ugly. You get a worse display, which is totally fair. And that's about it. Like literally, that's about it. So with the iPhone 11, you're getting the extra colors, but most importantly, you're getting a phone which is actually reasonably priced. Sure, $700 is certainly not cheap, That is very much what we used to pay for the old school flagships 2-3 years ago before everything hit $1,000. And the fact that you're getting such a solid phone with some real improvements over that XR at the $700 price tag, that is so impressive. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Apple lowered the price of an iPhone, and I'm really happy about that. The new iPhone 11 models will be shipping on September 20th, a little over a week from today, as well as some of the other devices, including that brand new Apple Watch, will also be hitting on the 20th. I'm very curious to know, what do you guys think about the iPhone 11 versus the iPhone Pro and the Max? I'm super curious, because as far as I'm concerned, that iPhone 11 is where it's at.